All right. So for this video, we're going to go over the difference between distance and displacement. And this video takes a lot of inspiration from the Khan Academy video. So if you want to check out a more professional version of it, those are awesome videos too. So imagine you are starting, there's my guy, running, and you're starting at 0. And then you run 30 kilometers east. You go 10 kilometers south. And then you go in the opposite direction, 30 kilometers west. And we want to figure out what's the difference between the distance this person traveled and the displacement. So let's see, you're just kind of hanging out at the finish. Okay, so for distance, if I want to talk about the distance that's going on, the distance you traveled is just adding up all of those different pieces. So we got 30 kilometers and 10 kilometers and then the other 30 kilometers for a total distance of 70 kilometers. Okay. Now for the displacement. For displacement, that's going to be a little different. For displacement, that's going to be the 30 kilometers east. Now the direction matters. Plus 10 kilometers west. Oh, sorry, 10 kilometers south. And the 30 kilometers west. Now, if we take a look at this, what happens is the difference between where we started and where we finished, right? That's that 10 kilometers south. So the answer for our displacement is 10 kilometers south. So how are these two things different? Why do they give us different answers? We can look at what they mean. For the distance, we just added up all of those little paths, right? So everything in between actually mattered. So for distance, we know that, let's go purple. Oh. For distance, you just add up the total path length, the total path traveled. Okay. For the displacement, it's going to be the difference between from where you started to where you finished. So for distance, everything in between matters. All the different paths, you just add them all up. For displacement, all of that stuff in between doesn't really matter. We only care about the start and the finish positions and the difference between those two things. Okay? Now, if I have a position versus time graph, okay, we can find distance and displacement the exact same ways. Remember, distance cares about all of the distances traveled, all of the paths traveled, just add them up. So this person started at 30. 10 seconds later, they were at 10 meters. So they traveled a total of, from there to there, right? They traveled a total of 20 meters because they went from 30 to 10. And then in this second piece, they started at 10 and they finished at 25 meters. So in that little second green part, They went from 10 to 25 meters, so they went 15 meters. So the total distance traveled would be 35 meters. Okay. Now, if I'm worried about displacement, remember displacement now only cares about the difference between where I start and where I finish. So that person started at 30 and they finished at 25 meters. So the easiest way to do that, if I want to know the difference between start and finish, I go final position minus the starting position. Okay, and it becomes just what we got. Final position was 25 meters. Starting position was 30 meters. And so the overall displacement ends up being negative 5 meters. Now that negative sign right there is important because that tells us something now. With displacement, the direction matters. So what this tells me is that this thing went, or this person went 5 meters backwards overall, right, in the negative direction. So they finished 5 meters behind where they started.